And we're back for another episode of the Sports Talk podcast, and your eyes are not deceiving you. We have Tommo F1.
We're big time, boys.
Podcast.
We're big time.
It's bad to think though, because like this time last year plus maybe a month, I had no more like or less following than you guys do.
I know you've had a rapid growth. You really
so
have.
You know what I mean. It's not like I've forgotten my roots and I've got the clout's gone to my head and I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, I know the feeling, boys. I know the feeling of pushing for it. But yeah, man, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you for coming on. To be honest, I dropped a super chat in one of Tommo's lives, and he just went. I said. Blah, blah. I asked an F1 question because we do love our F1, and he just responded back with, "Yeah, I'll come on the podcast," and it was quite. I didn't know how to take it really.
Mate,
at the time,
the amount of grafting we've been doing for guests, and for you to just go, "Yeah, I'll do it."
Yeah,
you go instantly, "Yeah, I'll do it." Big name YouTuber, 100k subs.
Yeah,
mate.
We've been emailing like all these like smaller YouTubers than yourself.
Yeah.
And then you were just like, yeah, sure. Well, let's do it.
Mate.
I FaceTimed Ben during a lesson. It was bad. I was like, we got him on.
Listen, but again, trust me, like I know the feeling. Like that's why on my channel I do like I try and shout out as many like smaller creators and that because I know how difficult. I'm sure we'll talk about the football stuff later on.
Yeah,
I grafted doing football shit for years and just like didn't get anywhere. I know the struggle, and I try. I can't always respond to everyone, and I can't always put myself. But I'm happy to, and like I really like what you guys do as well. So I'm more than happy to kind of support.
I appreciate that. I mean, it must be strange for you because you've got your own podcast. We need to shout you out as well. You might get like 2 more people subscribed or something.
We get the real views coming in now.
Yeah, exactly. We've got Tommo does the cool down podcast, so this must be quite strange for you to be a guest on someone else's podcast.
It's quite nice because look, let's be honest, everyone likes talking about themselves, and obviously when I have guests on, we're talking all about them, and I don't get to talk about myself.
It's all about you today. It's all about you today, mate. Everything's about you. So I'm sure most of you who are watching this do know who Tommo is. He's got a very, very good. It's not just the numbers. You have a quality YouTube channel.
Thank you, man.
I was looking through it earlier today, doing some research, and the thumbnails are lovely. They do look very aesthetic. We might need some tips on how to do ours in the future. But 150 subscribers, and like you said, you only had around 1,000 about a year and a half ago.
The start of 2020, I had, I think it was 400.
Mate, that's a joke.
Which is what a year and a month and a bit, like a year and 2 months ago. So yeah, it's like, yeah, boys, you like it is as mad as you lot can imagine because and the thing is as well because it's all been over this like lockdown period as well. It's not like I've got the opportunity to like go out and do anything or like meet people. You know what I mean? Like go to a race and meet. Like it's still all just been me in this room, you know what I mean?
That makes it better, though. That makes it better that you've done it on your own accord and it's your concept that gave you that rapid growth.
Well, that's the thing. The numbers like start to lose meaning. I mean, fuck it, like it's mad. I put a video out. What was it like on Wednesday, and it's done like 60k views, which the way things have been going at the minute, that's quite low. But your perspective on it changes completely because I remember with my old channel, my football channel, my highest ever video views-wise got 20k, and to me that was like mad. Yeah, literally, that was like mad. And like it's funny how like as time goes on, the goalposts kind of shift and move. But like in terms of the actual day-to-day making videos, putting it out, like apart from there being more comments to respond to it, it kind of feels exactly the same.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good that you've kind of kept your ground in a little bit. The fact you've come on and done this, just from me messaging you through a super chat on your live, is incredible.
Listen, that's what I mean. I know the struggle of like, particularly because look, it's easy to say like, oh, don't think about the views, and that shouldn't be what motivates you. You should be motivated because you love what you do. But obviously, it is hard when you're continuously putting stuff out there, and it maybe doesn't bang like you think it will, or you just, you know what I mean. And it's like, it's not that That's why for a lot of small creators, it's like if I can draw some attention to someone, that will kind of open the door to an extent, you know, for new eyeballs, but you've still got to walk through it. Like you can't like launch someone's like unless you're fucking KSI.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Which I'm not yet, but you know, watch this space.
We're gonna. Yeah, that's the next one. We're gonna go straight from Tommo to KSI.
Hey, listen, boys, dream big,
jump.
you know.
Yeah, dream big. And speaking of big YouTubers and people like KSI, I know they're not at the same stage, but you were actually asked with you mentioned your football channel, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You were actually asked by True Geordie to go on the kickoff, wasn't it? Can you just explain a bit about that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that was that. I dropped that in my podcast. So yeah, I mean the football YouTube kind of thing was quite. I started that. I mean, I first started uploading on YouTube in like 2015. I did like a Rocket League upload through PlayStation. Like I was fucking 21, 22 at the time. I wasn't exactly a kid, and I was like, uploading Rocket League. But yeah, and eventually like I started doing West Ham and vlogging stuff and that. And then I can't even remember how initially I got contact with Brian, but I chatted with him quite a bit, and like I met him a couple of times on shoots when he was doing stuff for like Slash Football, and he invited me along. There's a if you go on the Slash Football YouTube channel, there's a video like way back of me and like him and Lawrence are presenting, and I'm like the West Ham fan, and I've got like a beard of shaving foam, and it's mad. But yeah, so like we'd met and we chatted loads, and like they invited me to their like Christmas do where like Statman Dave was. I was chatting with Dave for about an hour just about
Mate, that
stuff.
must have been unreal.
It was weird, man.
I would have for Statman Dave. Oh my god.
And there was like a sofa at the back, which was like the exclusive one, and it had like who's the guy who does all the strip FIFA stuff?
Oh, JMX.
Oh,
Him.
JMX.
Yeah, he was on there.
His
I didn't speak
on
to
Love
him.
Island. His
That's
girlfriend
it,
went on Love
yeah.
Island.
Yeah, like his big table, big VIP
Yeah.
table.
That's it. And that was my first like I kind of met a few people there, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe. But as you boys know, like football is very saturated because it's the world sport.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people doing it, but yeah, with the kickoff, like we were. Well, I can't remember. I think this was obviously in those pre-lockdown days, and I think we were away with something for my family on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday we would. I think it was like the Mrs. Hannah. It was one of her grandparents or someone in her family. It was a birthday, and we were meant to be going to this meal. And then like Brian messaged me on that Saturday evening, like, "Oh, do you want to be on the kickoff tomorrow?" And I was like,
mate.
"Oh, fuck, I can't." And I was like, I was like, oh, am I gonna like? Because this was all obviously with all of my missus' family, and we hadn't been together for that long. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to leave it like shit impression.
That's
like,
ropes.
It's fragile.
Yeah,
Fragile,
exactly.
yeah.
So I didn't in the end, but look, I mean, and yeah, there was various things like after that I chatted to Brian, and you know when they did like the Wembley Cup and they needed a bit of help with some design stuff like EXO and that, so I did like the crest for their shirts, which is cool.
Mate, get out.
And yeah, but I obviously from then on in, like I think Brian's I don't know how close you follow his stuff, but I think he's gone through quite a intense last couple of years in himself.
Oh yeah.
And I think he kind of shut a lot of people out and kept the close people close. And so I haven't really spoken to him since. But he's such a nice bloke.
Content. I bet he is. You can see in his content the journeys that he's had. But obviously,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he's very open about it as well. To be fair.
Yeah,
like,
and it's important. It's really important.
Yeah, he's been one of the leading people I think in YouTube that's talked about mental health, and it helps that like he's like for us, he's like the inspiration in terms of podcasting. You want to have the way it's shot, it's brilliant, it's lovely, and that brick apartment, we need to get one, Ben. We need to save up. They look lovely.
Well, I've been to the one, so not the current one, but the one before. You know, the one where he had like Ian Wright and
the red
Jake Logan.
Yeah.
I went there because we were talking about potentially I was going to help them design some merchandise, but this was way before he actually launched it, and it didn't end up materializing. But yeah, like that space was insane, and you know, it's up some like you'd go walk into this like unsuspecting building in like it was like near kind of Barbican Way, and you go up this like lift. Which I think you talked because the stairs were a fucking pain in the ass, and there's just this huge penthouse. It was goals, mate. It was goals.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, speaking a bit about back there about your designing, and that comes through in your thumbnails, I think, and your channel in general. So what exactly were you doing for, like you say, the Wembley Cup? And I think you did a bit for WTF.
Mate, I was going to say, I had a bit of a little bit of a stalk of your Instagram. I was seeing that you do like shoe design.
Yeah.
I was looking at them.
The thing is, boys, because I'm a bit older, I've had more time to like. What's the word? Like refine my craft, I guess. Yeah. So obviously, I went to university and I graduated when I was like, well, I would have been 21, 22, whatever age it is. And then I ended up getting into like graphic design. So the thing is with my stuff is that obviously having that foundation in, like, I worked for a couple of agencies and that before. And I worked for WTF1 like last year, like freelancing, like video editing. So it's all just kind of come over time. But yeah, like graphic design. So like, for example, like I said with XO, like designing the crest. I mean, that's a super simple, like there's nothing crazy about the crest. I designed some a bit more out there ones, but they went with a more kind of simple option. Yeah. But that's the thing, like it was just kind of, I guess I kind of took that skill and then obviously been able to apply that to YouTube, and then the video editing I kind of taught myself because I wanted to make videos. Sorry, the camera's shaking because Minton's scratching himself. Just literally sat around. He's be wobbling, you know why? Settle down, mate. Fine. And it literally just kind of, and obviously over the years I've been able to kind of improve my video editing skills and again, apply that graphic design style to my thumbnails and all that, and that's kind of helped me. And then obviously doing my football stuff. Because at the start, when I started, there weren't many F1 content creators putting themselves, like recording themselves. Yeah. And I think that is kind of important if you want to build a connection. And yeah, because I was kind of happy to do that, I kind of put all together and it's worked out a treat.
Well, when you talk about F1 YouTube, I watch a lot of F1 YouTube, and people like Josh Revel, they've never really shown their face. I know he's been on your podcast and he had a camera on then, but he's always used this little cartoon character, which does look amazing. Not going to lie, it does look brilliant.
The thing is, it suits Josh because Josh is hilarious. He's such a funny bloke.
Oh, he's so funny.
And like he's almost like created that character because the thing is, like, I've chatted to him loads over like just Zoom chats and that, and like off the record and that, and he is that funny. He's so dry. His sense of humour is so dry. I love it. But yeah, like, I guess you're right. It kind of suits because he conveys so much personality in what he says and how he says it. He kind of doesn't need to have his face, but he still gets recognised. I was chatting to him. He still gets recognised, even though he's not like, he was telling me, this was when we were both on about 40, 50k, and he got recognised down at a pub in Auckland, and it was like, how am I getting recognised? I don't even put myself. But obviously those odd occasions where he has put himself out there, people recognise him. It's weird.
It's weird, but like also you started doing work with Veloci, and another one that springs to mind along with Josh is obviously Aldas, who's only just started to put himself in his videos, hasn't he? And I think that's proved more growth for Aldas recently because of that. I think he's started to be a bit more, I don't know, before you think he's just a voice, whereas when he's obviously showed himself, he's a person, and like he does have the F1 personality to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I need to tell him, like, he needs to start doing like voice acting on the side. Just
he does.
A bit of a side hustle.
His voice is dreamy, isn't it?
It's incredible. It's so unique. It's crazy. But again, Aldas was someone that I looked up to massively when I started, because, you know, when I started, he was well into the 5 figures subscriber numbers. He was, I reckon, 20, 30k probably when I first started. I remember actually I messaged him. Basically, when I started my channel, I was like, okay, how am I going to like try and get some, you know, you've got to put yourself out there. And I think that's what I've not been afraid to do in terms of like messaging people, and the fact I've been able to work with Veloci and WTF1, and I've met like Jimmy, Super GT. I've been able to get a lot of opportunities because I'm not afraid to just like put myself out there. And with Aldas, I was like, oh, do you need any help doing your thumbnails and that? From Nikita. If you go back on which is funny now because obviously I've got like, not like I've got double the subscribers of him now, and also like we just chat all the time. Like mate, I consider him a mate now. It's funny how like things can change, like I say, over a year so quickly. But yeah, you're right. Like he kind of changed up his, and obviously I know a lot of the reason because he was doing his studies still. He was still at university, so he wasn't able to upload as much as he'd have liked to. But I think he's onto a really good thing. He's got really strong thumbnails now. I think he's got really strong thumbnails, actually. In terms of that type of content, I think he's got some of the strongest out there, because it's just few little things on Photoshop, get your head around, and you elevate him massively. But yeah, it's working a treat for him.
That's something that I've tried to do. So I don't know what you know of us, but I started this based on the fact I wanted to do a Formula 1 Instagram page. So I was doing lots of lots of graphic design to go into the Instagram page. Mm-hmm. And only through that have I been able to, only recently, I think one of the videos we've just done hit 300 views, which is nothing to you.
It's peanuts to Tom. But to us,
it's peanuts to Tom. But you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing. It's not that distant when that was the same for me. You know what I mean?
No,
it really isn't, and that's what I mean. I can't emphasize that enough. The goalpost will always change. 300k, 300 views for you probably feels like 100k for me. But as time goes on, you will adjust those goalposts, and all of a sudden, 300 views will be a bad video for you. You know what I mean?
In fairness, me and Jack have never I know views are obviously good when you're starting off. When you start off as a YouTuber, you're always looking at the analytics, thinking, "Oh, what's the watch time, etc., etc." But we don't do it solely because of the views. We do it because we enjoy and we love making these podcasts and just doing what we would do normally without a camera on, which is just rambling about sport.
Yeah,
mostly waffling about sport.
Well, just talking absolute rubbish about sport, but just to make that content and put it online and do something which we enjoy is brilliant. And then if the views come with it, that's fantastic as well.
The thing is, it's a bit of a, because you're right, 100%. So when I was looking at my YouTube studio constantly when I was in that growth period, particularly start of last year, I went from 400 to 10k in a month, and I was looking at it all the time and super analyzing. But you're right, as time goes on, I mean, I rarely, apart from in the first kind of couple of hours, I'll look at the analytics, but then I'm right, next video, I don't even think about it.
Do you make videos that you know that will bang? Do you specifically pick a video where you think, I don't know, if you see obviously with the Hamilton resigning, or you think with your overview videos, do you know in your head you're thinking I'm onto a good one here?
I think, look, obviously it's 100% part of it. If I'm going to make a video about a subject that is super niche and I don't think anyone's interested in, then I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, a lot of it is, how do you, because look, in terms of the actual views of a video, watch time is the content, but in terms of the views and that click-through rate, that's all thumbnail and title. And if you can frame it in a certain way, so for example, the video that I'm putting out probably next week is on Otmar Safnauer. Like a profile, exclusive, yeah, exactly. But then, so I didn't know that he actually was at he was at Brawn before Ross came in, so he was at Honda, and then Ross got rid of him. So you know what I mean? I'll probably title it somewhere around dropped from Brawn, now king of the midfield, something along those lines. I don't know, but you know what I mean? You've got to factor that in, but also I'm not going to make a video about something I'm not interested in, because I'm not motivated in that way to do it. But also that's the thing, because views is obviously it's a metric. It's something that it's
a YouTuber's currency, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And it's it's when you get good views and good comments and all that. It's it's nice. It's a nice feeling to know that you've done something that people enjoy. But unfortunately, a lot of views isn't tied to that. It's tied to just if the algorithm happens to pick it up, which is kind of huge, how I kind of started off, really, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, I think that recently your growth has been huge, and that shows through your content. But I think what Ben's saying is true to an extent. I think that you do videos that do that will do well, but at the same time you often do. But at the same time, I also think that it's your content as well. It's not like you're doing it for the views. I feel like it suits your style really well. And
well, it's the whole doing it for the views. What does that even? Because you're right. That term's thrown around quite a lot, isn't it? And it's what is clickbait? What isn't clickbait? And it's all kind of you've got a if you create an amazing TV show or an amazing product and you don't market it, then it's not going to sell. No one's going to watch it. It's naive to not realise that is an important part to it. Does all your, like, of course you get ridiculous clickbait out there, which is like nothing to do with the actual
JMX.
Context of the video. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
JMX is huge.
But you know what I mean? Like that exists, and that's like ridiculous. Like, but people don't. The only people who stay and engage with those videos are kids generally, and that's why it works so well with a younger demographic. But you don't get away with that when you're, you know, focusing your videos to a more adult audience. And it's a game, man. Like, it's a game, and you just got to work out the rules and play them the best you can. And I've just been quite fortunate to sort it out.
Tom, don't get me wrong. I assume you've got 150k subscribers. I would
almost.
Sorry, I would assume, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume it's your prime source of income, YouTube. Or is it not your job? Or...
So at the moment, obviously with Veloce, the situation with Veloce is that I'm on a retainer with them. Yeah. So that I do earn money from them. They pay me like on a monthly basis to feature in videos. And then obviously, my channel generates a revenue now, which is, I mean, I think it's something people should be more like open about.
Oh yeah, I'm not forcing you to talk.
No. I mean, I probably get like $2,500 a month on average at the moment, just from AdSense, and that's obviously related to views, because like subscribers don't mean anything when it comes to revenue, because it's so that figure can fluctuate massively. But the thing is as well, like the bigger you get, then you start to get brand deals. Which I would love to tell you how much I earn from them, but I can't.
Please.
They'll kill me.
Just for the sake
but
of...
I do think that like money is a subject, because people, I don't want to come across like an arsehole. But I think for everyone it should be a more talked about thing, because you know it's such a like coy and everyone's hiding. It doesn't need to. It's not like that in certain countries, in like Scandinavia. Everyone talks about what they earn, just like anything, and it means that you can't get like massively undercut by someone you're working with, because everyone knows what everyone's earning. So
I think people view it as quite a braggy thing, though.
Yeah,
if you're making a lot of money. But ultimately, one thing I was going to say with YouTubers is, it seems to be the YouTubers who make the most money, who have the biggest figures, who get the most views, are the ones that do the content that they love and because they want to do it. They don't do it for the money. So like you hear, I know we talked about KSI earlier, just the name drop in there, put him in the title. But like, he obviously still does videos that he enjoys making. I think that's clear to see. But like, he's obviously making absolute racks off.
He's doing Reddit videos.
Yeah, but that's what he loves doing. That's what he loves doing.
I'm sure he loves
he's always said that he just does videos that he likes doing. I think that's
what he
really
enjoys.
Key.
I think like PewDiePie is a good example as well. Like, he just kind of makes stuff that he clearly enjoys making and enjoys doing it. And that's the thing. You can look at YouTube as, I mean, look, ultimately, I now look at YouTube as a business, because it is bringing me income in. But ultimately, like, I've got to where I am by making videos that I enjoyed making. Because again, like I made football videos for like 4 years and got nothing. So I had zero expectation of anything more than that with my F1 stuff. It was just like, oh, I'm a bit more into F1 now. It's a bit different. I'd like to do videos around that now. That was literally the thought process behind it. And it wasn't anything more than that. It wasn't, this is an opportunity to earn a living from YouTube. Not at all. Not in the slightest, you know?
Well, the main reason why I brought up sort of the money side of it, and obviously I wasn't trying to be intrusive, and I appreciate you.
Don't be serious.
I appreciate you've shared that with us. But I was going to say, like, obviously with YouTube, it's sort of like, if you're making a sole living off YouTube, it's sort of a game between, you play the clickbait game, you get those views, you make more money because it's your sole living, or you do something which you know that won't get views, but you stick to your content that you love and you know is quality content, and then your viewer retainment is a lot higher than if you just make a crazy clickbait title, do nothing related to the video, and then that viewer will go. You make consistently good videos, and your viewer retention is strong now, and you're consistently getting those like 60k, 70k plus views every single time you make a video, and that's because of the quality content you make. And
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, when it is your, like, if it is your sole income, which for me it still isn't at the moment. Yeah. And I've still got those kind of, that's part of like one of the reasons I was keen, like I accepted the offer with Veloce, is because it is if my channel is for some reason deleted. And we know there was a bit of talk earlier this year about like channels and FOM being a bit, hence dropping the F1. You know what I mean? So it's like, and it is still such in its infancy so much. Like I 100%, I believe in myself that, this will eventually be kind of my full-time thing for sure. But for the time being, like you've got to, you can't be naive. I've got rent to pay. I've got, a dog to feed. You know what I mean? Like,
not the dog.
You're lucky he's not a big. You're lucky he's not a big dog, though. You're lucky he's not a big dog.
That was kind of all part of the decision, wasn't it? Bless him. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, there are a lot of factors, and yeah, I understand why people, would when it comes when your income is dependent on it.
Yeah,
I get it, but also. Yeah, like at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm just kind of the way I'm able to upload now. I want to be at like 2 a week, and that's what I'm doing now, and I'm really happy with that. And I'm able to balance that with the Veloce work fine. Obviously, while we're in lockdown, there's not much else I can fucking do, is there?
Yeah.
no. But like, do you find it hard talking about F1 in the off season? Because obviously we've got 47 days to go now until Bahrain. But do you find it hard to do content that when in the off season when there's not actually a lot going on?
I mean. The thing is, when I started the channel, we were in the off season, and then we never got F1 back until whatever month it started in, because the channel started. I uploaded my first video in September 2019, and then it was Boxing Day when I first noticed the views on that Rich Energy video start to go whoop. But then from there, it was like there was no F1 for months, so I guess. I'm quite used to finding things to talk about, and obviously the reaction, not reaction videos, the prediction videos are obviously a no-brainer. That's a template that's rolled out. I feel like I wasn't the first to do it, of course, but in terms of those were the videos that really helped keep that train moving at the start. And then there's it's just kind of trial and error. I mean, the thing is, even though I do F1, I still do a lot of different things. I do profiles on individuals, I do just random listicles, I do livery redesigns, I do predictions, you know what I mean? I still keep it quite, because I've got a very short attention span. But yeah, it's not too much of an issue, but obviously, livery reveals are coming next week, which I'm gassed for. And then, season's not too far around the corner. So yeah, I'll make do.
Yeah, I think with the, and also you've dropped F1 from your name as well now, like you've mentioned. So, and that's obviously with the FOM thing and all of that. But one thing I was going to ask is that, obviously that Rich Energy video, that was your one that went huge, wasn't it? That was your catalyst as such. And I think that you're the only person to ever benefit in Formula One from Rich Energy, which is weird.
Thank you, William Story. Thank you.
That man was good for you, but for no one else. He literally ripped off Haas, but he made your career. He made your YouTube channel. So
it's mad.
One thing I think is you would have got there anyway. Like, you've obviously Josh obviously had a huge impact in your channel's growth.
Definitely,
that can't be understated. But I do think you would have got there anyway, because YouTube's a game. It's like art. It's like anything. The quality rises to the top. The cream rises to the top. And at the end, it doesn't matter what happens. You're going to get that anyway, I think.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I agree, but also I don't think I would have carried on with the channel if it wasn't for that. And I've said this before, just honestly, because obviously there were numerous things around that time that kind of occurred. Like, my dad passed away in the November, which meant I took some time off the channel. And then when I came back to it, I was just I was thinking about turning my old channel into a more design related channel, because I was always I like the football, I like the design, and I thought football's a bit oversaturated. I like doing the design stuff, so you can see that I've done some tutorials and that Photoshop shit on there. And I wasn't really too sure between the F1 and I knew I wanted to make videos, but I just was I need to pick one and kind of focus on it. And then when I saw the views were starting to, obviously I was like, okay, this is an opportunity now that I've never had, where I'm getting the views are going up, and that's all right. Predictions, bang, 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 sorted. But yeah, you're right. That's the thing with if it wasn't for Josh doing his 1,000 subscriber special, which is mad to say it itself, because he's over 150k now, where he talks about Rich Energy, and then that aligned perfectly with my Rich Energy video, and it it born a beautiful YouTube baby, you know.
I still think you are a YouTube baby because you've not been doing this for that long. But I want to just get your views on, obviously, we're long form content on YouTube. So we obviously do make little clips and stuff, and that's really easy compared to compiling the podcast. But how have you found the cooldown compared to your other videos? I know it doesn't get as many views, but maybe your enjoyment's probably better from it, or...
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I firmly, like, I could be spending that time making videos that would get more views and generate more revenue and all that, but the idea behind the cooldown initially was just to be like a post-race podcast, just like WTF1 do their post-race podcast. That was the initial kind of idea, just from my perspective, talking about it. And it's kind of like what I've turned. So I typically do a live stream on the Monday after the race, where I'll then recap the race. So that's kind of what the cooldown was initially meant to be. But then that never happened. And then obviously I managed to get Jess on, which was the first guest, which was then, because that's the thing, that getting Jess on meant then I got Tommy on, and then I got Matt on, and then Matt offered me a job. So it's kind of like that all just kind of
WTF1 lot on, didn't you?
Yeah, literally.
This is how we make our way up, mate. We're in the business here.
Hey, listen, boys, don't ask, don't get. You know.
Well, we hope this one's like your Rich Energy video. We hope this one just goes through the roof, absolutely through the roof. Right, let's get down to Formula One, because we talked a little bit about YouTube there, and ultimately I've got Tom on to talk about F1.
Talk about whatever you like. Talk about, you know,
one thing I wanted
your life. You could talk to me. I could ask you questions. You know,
therapist now.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Come
goes
on.
both ways. He's a
Can
podcast
learn
host
from
himself.
my ancient years. 28 now.
So I was going to ask about Alex, because that's one thing when I was watching your videos. You're a huge Alex Albon fan, to anybody who doesn't know. You literally love the man. You worship him. You've probably got a shrine behind the camera or something.
All hail.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
But I was just wanting to ask, like, I know obviously why you love Alex, because he's local to you, isn't he? And he's in the area, and he just seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. So what do you think about him getting dropped from Red Bull for Perez?
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand the decision. I said this before numerous times. Taking my own bias out of it, if I was Red Bull, I would have signed Sergio. I would have, because a driver of Sergio's caliber being available, and you've got a driver who, you know, didn't have a good season, hasn't proven themselves in that. I completely understand, and if I was Red Bull and I wasn't me, if I was Helmut Marko, I would have made that decision as well. Yeah. So look, again, I think being a West Ham fan, it teaches you to have a degree of understanding and respect for the situation, which rarely goes your way. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't make it easy for myself, boys. Like, I could have just picked Lewis Hamilton, but I was like, no, I'm gonna follow Alex out, because actually Lewis is closer. Technically, he grew up in Stevenage. I grew up in Romford, which is like 30 miles away. Yeah. Colchester's actually a bit further away than that, but anyway, I get the decision. I think he would have got the AlphaTauri seat if it wasn't for Tsunoda, but obviously, and I love Yuki as well. I think he's a great driver. He's my favourite F2 driver last year. I'm definitely going to be rooting for him. But again, obviously,
fantasy?
I don't. I don't do fantasy, because fantasy does my head in. I don't know. It does my head in.
Do you do fantasy football or not?
I don't do fantasy football. It does my head in. It does my nut in, man.
Oh, no.
Bro, no, I'm sorry, because I watch a game and I'm rooting for someone I don't even fucking like. I'm like rooting for Man United because I want fucking Rashford to score. I'm like, what am I doing?
Nah.
And then I just get annoyed every time. I'm like this innocuous, like some random player for fucking Watford gets sent off, and then I'm pissed off.
Because no one wants to see Brighton versus Watford or etc. No one wants to watch that. But it's in your fantasy. If your striker's in your fantasy, you're rooting for him.
I've been heartbroken. I'm not heartbroken. I've been disappointed too many times from fantasy to like, I can't be asked anymore. And also the amount of times I forget, and then it's 1 week in, and I'm like, what's the point?
Players. I've got like 3 red injured players in my fantasy. Pretty sure Virgil's still in my fantasy, for God's sake.
To be fair, I did do F1 fantasy, but I didn't like keep track on it at all. I set it up because I was like, oh, this is interesting.
I don't see the point of it, because I'm a relatively casual F1 fan. I'm going to be honest. But
extremely casual.
F1 fantasy to me just seems like, right, you have so much money, you pick Lewis, you pick Verstappen, and then spend your money on 2 duds. what's the point? Because you only get 4 races, I've heard. So like,
I mean, I don't know. It is. I guess it is kind of more of a clear-cut thing with F1, but then you could argue the same to an extent with football. Not to the same extent, but still to an extent.
I get the point. Or you bank on, or you pick 4 midfield races, and you may accumulate more points than Hamilton.
But then I suppose like you got Pierre Gasly, who probably bringing in well loads of points. He's like the Thomas Souček of fantasy league.
I knew Souček was going to come up.
Of course he was. Come on. I haven't got much to be happy about as a West Ham fan. Give me.
What about this one? What the elbow? No. Yeah.
Don't fucking please. Mike Dean Bellend. There was a collective disdain of like that was a bad decision. Everyone agreed that was a joke.
Yeah, the memes were out in full force.
They were very much so.
You know what? Actually, last podcast I chose Souček as my Premier League Team of the Year, and they laughed at me, Tommo. So
yes, because you're delusional.
No,
well, he's not now, is he?
No, I've got backup.
Yeah, all right.
I've got backup, mate. Yeah. I've got backup.
I mean, there's still a bit to go, but his red card has been rescinded, so he will be playing.
No, his form. I can't deny his form. It's just the fact that Monty picked him for the Team of the Year. I can't get my head around. But I appreciate Souček being a very good player.
Wait, when did you pick him in Team of the Year? At the start of the season?
No, we've just done a Team of the Year for 2020.
Oh, right, sorry. I thought you meant like a prediction team.
No.
He's got to be up there.
Bro, that's a video idea now.
Who else is that going to be? Yeah, that's right. Who's going to be in that like CDM kind of role? You've got like
Fabinho, I think.
Yeah, Fabinho.
Or Henderson.
Gave away that penalty though, didn't he?
Yeah, well, it was pre-recorded after he did that. So
fair enough.
Oh no, yeah. So we were on. We got sidetracked a bit there.
Yeah, from Alex, didn't we?
From Alex, we're on Alex. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is like, look again. He would have got the AlphaTauri seat, but Tsunoda and the Honda connection, I understand. You know, he hasn't had the chance like Kvyat did, like Pierre did, to get dropped from a Red Bull and then prove themselves. Because look, he was put into that Red Bull seat in his rookie season still. It was a lot for the lad to take on against Max Verstappen, who again, the calibre of Max, I think, can't be underestimated. A team that's very much, you know, it is built around him. We understand that. That is the thing. But ultimately, like, I think, you know, as long as he's racing, it's good. And obviously he's got that tyre connection, the fact that Red Bull is partially tyre owned, which can only stand him in good stead. Look, it is a factor.
It just does, yeah.
Yeah, of course it does. And I'm hopeful that, because I don't think Pierre's going to be in that Red Bull family for much longer. I really don't. I think like clearly he must have burned some bridges. I know Paul di Resta kind of touched on it. He must have burned some bridges at Red Bull because like there seems to be absolutely not even a shred of, no matter how good his performances are, that he's getting that Red Bull seat. So I reckon if Pierre does go, then Alex would hopefully come back in because I would love to see it. But I'm not going to lie as well. Like the drivers I'm supporting at the minute are, you know, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Norris. They're kind of the big three, and Gasly as well. I really like Pierre. But it will be nice because then it's not like my support for Alex. I was super invested in Alex. Like I would be nervous as fuck before every race because I just knew something bad was going to happen, and most of the time something bad did happen. So it's
I think I could pick up from most of your videos that you were very emotional towards Alex, and you always had that emotional connection.
Yeah,
which I didn't.
For sure.
I think it didn't really cloud your judgment, but like. I think it didn't help you in the season, did it? It didn't help you enjoy it as much.
No. I completely agree. Like, in terms of the anxiety around races, like in some ways, when a race started and he had a really bad start, like at Monza, for example, where he just fell right down, part of me was like, well, at least I can just enjoy the battle at the front and I don't have to worry about Alex being part of it and getting punted off by Lewis for a second time, for example, because that hurt.
If he'd done it again, it'd have been a hat trick. But I think Alex got his own back a little bit. Like I think he's stuck his elbows out with Lewis a bit more than maybe he would have with other drivers.
But what's mad to think is if that hadn't have happened, particularly the Austria one, obviously Brazil ended the season, would have been a great way to end the season. But the Austria one, where he definitely had the tyres, he had the pace, he would have won that race. I've got no doubt if he'd have got past Lewis there. Imagine how, you can never know, but the confidence he would have got from that result, I still think he would have been way off Verstappen for the rest of the season, but that could have made a big difference in how the season played out, but it didn't.
Ultimately, it cost him his seat. I think that move, like you say, if he gets the confidence from that, he goes on and he wins maybe 2 or 3 races that season. Maybe keeps his seat. But
or just more consistent, because that's the thing. It wasn't even that, he got the couple of podiums, but just there were so many results that were just he was really low down the order. And just if it's consistently 5th, 6th, like, it's not amazing, it's not where it should be, but it's still getting those points in, and you just didn't do that often enough for Red Bull to justify keeping him. So
yeah, confidence is huge.
Do you reckon that with obviously who's came in with Sergio Perez coming into Red Bull, do you reckon they're going to get on, the Red Bull pair?
I think that obviously Sergio's got a lot of experience. Red Bull have to. There must be some kind of change in Red Bull's approach for them to be taking on Sergio Perez, because they've been very loyal to their... People criticise Red Bull's driver development programme, but they've been very loyal to their own breed. Webber was the last non-Red Bull youngster to come in to the team. And I think that... I don't know. Max still exhibits at times, like when he tried to make that move on Sergio at Turkey and spun out. Max has got an incredible, he's got so much talent, but he can be liable to being a bit. But this is the first time Max has had a proper challenge from a teammate since Daniel Ricciardo. I think it could be good for him as well.
What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
He's got a point.
No, but a lot. Yes, they had a couple of comings together, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't all the time, and they both performed well. They both won races at Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo won 7 races, didn't he? So, you know what I mean? It's it's difficult. And Verstappen's won 10 his whole career. Daniel's won 7. You think how many Max has won since Daniel left Red Bull as well. So I think I'm optimistic, because I want Sergio to do well. I love Sergio. I think he's great. He's such a nice bloke as well. But yeah, I think it could be at risk of bubbling over a bit. They've got a bit of a challenge on their hands.
It would be nice. It would be quite tasty to see that, actually, because the F1 season that's just gone, it didn't.
There was no proper driver beef, was there, between teammates?
You want a little bit of it, don't you?
Yeah. In 2019, it was kind of nice, Vettel and Leclerc getting a bit, feisty.
Well, exactly. It's like the only reason I watch I'm a Celeb on ITV. It's for I don't watch it for people to be nice. The last 2 years they've been too nice. You want somebody to go in and stir the pot. Yeah, but one thing I think that complements
so true.
One thing that complements Sergio in that Red Bull is the fact we've seen it be a bit leery. I mean, Alex spun it at Imola, but it is a very, very hard to drive car, we've experienced with Alex and Pierre. But do you think that with Perez, he's inbuilt traction control, that's literally what people are saying about him, do you think he'll be able to tame that Red Bull?
Well, the thing is, Red Bull, even for Verstappen, I mean, look at Hungary, his little spin into the wall during the procession lap. Even Verstappen is at risk of can lose that car at times. I was watching a video from the race actually a while ago, and they were talking about how actually that doesn't suit Max either. Having a temperamental car, Red Bull really need to get on top of that. Mercedes had that issue a few years ago with a car that was a bit loose on its arse. But I think you're right, Sergio. If anyone can manage that situation, then I think it's Sergio. But the problem is, we still haven't really got an answer as to why things went so wrong for Pierre, particularly Pierre, because Pierre has gone on to look. As much as I believe Alex is very, very good, and he can definitely, in the right car, in the right team, perform very well in F1, Pierre has proven it beyond any shadow of doubt by winning that race, by performing so consistently last year. Why did it go so wrong for him at Red Bull? And then why did the same thing happen to Alex? And why can't the same thing happen to Sergio? Because Sergio's been at the same team for 7 years. It's a new team for Sergio. Completely there's so many unanswered questions. It is literally, and the same with Vettel, same with Alonso. There's so many which is what I'm really excited for 2021, because there's so many unknowns going into the year with driver pairings.
Alonso's a massive unknown.
It's huge. Yeah. I mean, I've said like I'm
vendetta. He's not a nice guy, is he?
No, it's not. No, it's not just that. It's not just that.
On the podcast. We want him on the podcast. Don't say that about him.
You've burnt the Alonso bridge. No, I've said like I don't agree with the way Alonso's conducted himself a lot of the times over his career, right? But also, he's 39 and just had 2 years out of F1. Now, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Kimi Räikkönen, Michael Schumacher, because they both were later on in their career, had time out, came back whenever the driver they used to be. And I think it's not so much to say Alonso's going to be bad. I don't think he's going to be bad. I just think that the field is so competitive. There's so many good drivers in F1 at the moment that for him to perform well, he has to not only do well, but do better than all of them. And I think that's a huge ask for someone who's had 2 years out of F1 and is 39.
Yeah, he's cracking on a bit, isn't he? Him and Kimi, they're genuinely old enough to be like Yuki's dad. It's unreal. Probably granddad at this point. Like,
comfortably. It's mad.
I just wanted to touch on. We've touched on Yuki obviously there, but we've got 2 new rookies coming in to the Haas seats. We've got, we talked about Schumacher. We've got his lad, Mick Schumacher, coming through. There's huge questions with him about whether he's earned his seat. I personally think he's more than earned it. I think he should be in.
100%, definitely.
And people who are denying it are just, obviously, Michael Schumacher haters from back in the day. But then the controversial one, the one that we need to talk a little bit more on, because I haven't really heard you speak about it, is, of course, the controversial as ever, Nikita Mazepin.
Oh, yes.
I just want to get your opinions on. Obviously, we've got the We Say No to Mazepin campaign. Do you think he should be racing in F1?
I mean, look, Mazepin's not, like, first of all, on track. He's not proven he's got the ability to perform in F1. But then he's not the only person. You could say that about Stroll, for example. You could say that about Latifi. Drivers who had not the most impressive junior careers getting into F1 because of money, because of other factors, right? It's a part of F1, always has been. Hopefully won't always will be, but always has been. And you know what, like I say about Stroll, he's gone on to prove that, I think Stroll has gone on to prove that he's good enough to be in F1.
I agree, I have to agree, yeah.
And I think Latifi could do the same. I think Mazepin could do the same. Purely talking on track, and obviously Mazepin's had his kind of run-ins, like squeezing people into the wall as well. He's quite aggressive on track.
He's like Ben in league racing.
Oh, mate, genuinely.
You're one of them.
I'm a joke.
He's awful.
I hate myself when I'm racing. I'm so I don't care about anyone else. It's so bad.
It brings out the worst in you. It really does.
Me and Monty have had full-blown arguments about the last corner. I undercut him. Me and him have had a full-blown argument for about 20 minutes. Shouting
for proper stewards afterwards looking at the replay.
Giving each other grid penalties at the end.
You track extended by 0.4 of a milliliter. Look, obviously with everything that's come from, Mazepin and all this shit. I mean, look, I said it at the time. I think the guy's continually, the actions that whether it's punching Calamai a lot, whether it's just being a dick.
His personal life isn't great.
Look, I don't know the guy,
especially with the woman thing as well. Like,
the thing is that I don't know the guy, right? Yeah. But these things continue to happen. Can only paint a picture that is a bit of a. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like, I've got nothing to suggest that he isn't. And then when it comes to all of this, I just think it's such a frustrating representation of how, because the method to deal with this kind of thing. I was listening to a really interesting podcast with Devin Nash, this guy on Twitch who talks all about esports and building a business online. Really, really good.
I know who he is.
Yeah,
really good,
and he was talking about cancel culture and how the best way of getting through a situation like this is just to go completely silent, delete any apology, don't acknowledge it, and just carry on, and people will eventually move on. And that's why, which is not right, because listen, I think that as long as the guy can show some genuine remorse and that he is genuine, because he admitted in his statement initially that the actions, not just the fact he posted it on social media, the actual actions were wrong. He admitted that himself.
Yeah.
So you see people defending him, saying, "Well, actually, she consented." No, he said himself that the actions were wrong.
He needs to hold himself to a higher standard. So
Exactly.
it shows that he knows he's done wrong.
But the thing is, like, the approach that they're taking from a PR and media point of view, and like the fact that F1 are going to carry this We Race as One badge, yet they're not going to step up when, you know, there are genuine questions that need answered. I mean, I'm not looking for the guy to be like cancelled from the human race forever. Okay, like as a young
the F1 race.
Yeah,
Just the F1 race.
But that's what I mean. Like that's a privilege to be racing in F1, and surely if you ask me, a representative punishment, a consequence of your actions would be losing that seat. Unfortunately, he's like, the thing is, Nikita's dad isn't just rich; he's 3 times richer than Lance Stroll's dad.
He's got 8 billion.
It's like 7.5 billion,
It's
something
ridiculous.
mad.
Yeah.
And this is Formula One, and we can't escape for the fact that money talks.
talks.
And that I don't agree with the situation. I don't think he should have a seat, but you know, and I just hope that because ultimately what matters more than any of us talking about it or any of us like trying to, you know, we say no to Mazepin online, is that he acknowledges his actions were wrong and he is a better person for it. That's all I care about. I hope Haas are doing the right thing and actually like giving it to him and telling him like this ain't right and helping him like learn what he needs to. Because look, F1 drivers, they grow up in very sheltered lives, and you can see where some drivers wouldn't have maybe the, you know, the life skills of others, but it's just
I'm sure his dad's made
show.
him hold a very, very sheltered life with a net worth of like 1.3 billion. 1.2
I mean,
billion.
exactly.
And
So,
also, like Tom said, these guys are touring around Europe. They're not really having much of a social life, are they?
No.
Like I think Lando's one of the only, Lando and Daniel, and I can understand why you're rooting for them because they're some of the only drivers that show personality. I think George does now. I think Alex is quite good in the media and all of this, and it's getting better. But with the Hamilton era, I think it was very, very PR based. It was very, very like, this is how it is. And
but also that's how
F1,
when Eccleston was in charge, you know, drivers weren't allowed to post on social media. You know, it was almost like F1 social started in 2017 or whenever. But like that's when it all of a sudden the drivers could express themselves without Bernie Eccleston calling them up and having a go and say, take down that Instagram story. You know, like genuinely, that's kind of how. And you say even someone like Lando.
I was going to say, there you go, Lando. Go stream on Twitch, mate.
Yeah, exactly. That would never have happened. But also, Lando did grow. Like he's talked about it. He actually, you know, he was rarely at school. He was always going around flying to Spain to do races and shit like that. So like, it's like, yeah, these drivers do have like very unique upbringings because you have to like start so early and all that. But again, touching on Nikita, like that doesn't excuse what he's done in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's important to understand why and how these kind of situations occur so that we can, like, F1 can try and do what it can to put things in place to try their best. Look, ultimately, like, people will do stuff, people will do bad things, people will make mistakes, whatever you want to call it, but like there is definitely more the sport can be doing, for sure.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up perfectly, really, because I think a leopard never changes its spot. That old analogy, is rings true here. But at the same time, Haas, when it happened, released a statement saying we're going to educate Nikita, and I hope they do. Because if they just say it and are just basically going, right, we'll just have your dad's money and keep you in, that's not the way it should work.
Do you not think that brought more attention to it though? Like Tom was saying. Do you not think Has coming out and saying we will teach him, we acknowledge he's done wrong? Obviously, if you're talking morality wise, yes, they should do it, but from purely avoiding a humanitarian sort of aspect of it, if you're looking at Has, they're saying yes, we've acknowledged that he's done all this stuff with women, etc. Like, it doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good, great.
But I think the team needed to do it because they were getting. There were so many. If you go on Haas's Instagram now, I'm sure Tommo will know. You go on there, any photo they post, it's "we say no to Mazepin." It's just the comments.
Yeah,
it's put a real cloud over Haas, who weren't even in the best place before this all happened.
Yeah.
Like they were a team that came in and hit the ground running and were one of the best individual teams in Formula One.
Absolutely.
And then they've just slipped down. And yes, I know that's partly due to the Ferrari power unit being god awful last year, but at the same time, they do need to have a better. I don't know. I think the one can't go without the other. You need to have a good face, and you need to have good good product.
The difference between Haas and Mazepin is that Haas is a business, it has sponsors, it has obligations in that regard. Like, it's just factually true that the best thing Nikita can do, not statistically, in terms of from experience of like people getting a pile online, whether it's good or bad, is the best thing you can do is just not acknowledge it and just stay quiet. But a business like Haas can't do that because they've got all these sponsors. I mean, because Jack and Jones they were Kevin Magnussen's personal kind of sponsor because they're a like Danish clothing company. And when they parted ways on the day that ended, Jack and Jones put out a statement saying, we don't condone Nikita Mazepin's behaviour. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like there must have been all these other factors, all this other pressure on Haas to at least acknowledge the situation where Nikita can just stay silent. But it's just a fucking shit show, boys. It's shit PR, and it's just like makes the sport look bad. But I hope they can just come to a solution that actually, works and changes Nikita and doesn't make, because you get some absolute fucking knuckle draggers like, oh, it's just what men do on, like, fuck off.
No. You wouldn't dream of doing it in any situation, yet alone putting it on your Instagram or your social media platforms. Exactly. It's pure. It's just absolutely revolting. Right, but, so I think we obviously, it's disgusting. It really is. But obviously, the reason that this ever came to happen, the reason that Tom actually came on the podcast was because of his Hamilton re-signing video. So I want to touch on that a little bit, because I don't know, I've watched that video 3 times back now.
Can I just mention something? You know when you commented on Tom's thing, did you pay for that super chat?
I did,
So technically, we have paid to get him on.
We've paid Tom a fee.
Hey, listen, but 15 quid, that's all I need, all right? To anyone else out there, I don't charge much.
But the thing is, you'd have come on for free. I just thought...
we'll get an invoice soon, don't worry.
Thank you. Tax deductible, of course.
Plus VAT on it as well. But, no, so I want to touch on Hamilton re-signing a little bit. Obviously, I know that you're not Hamilton. I wouldn't say Hamilton's biggest fan. You're not like a Hamilton fanboy as such, but I think
I've got nothing negative to say about Lewis at all. It's just, I mean, I don't have the same connection with it, which is a roundabout way of saying it's boring. No, it's not as boring now, I think, as he used to be quite boring.
Yeah, he used to be extremely boring.
But I think his character's come out a lot more recently. But I just don't have the same connection to him. And ultimately, there's something in support about like the struggle, and I think that's what's drawn me towards drivers, particularly like Alex. Part of it was like, he's not doing well, I really want him to do well, because I wasn't like, as soon as Alex was in the Toro Rosso seat, I wasn't following him like super hot straight as soon as he came in. I didn't really know anything about the guy like in 2019, but that kind of built over time. But go on, sorry, carry on about Lewis.
No, so I think what you've said, like, before we go into Lewis, I think what you said there, you've almost summed up what Red Bull is. It's like, Lewis obviously came into the sport from a very underprivileged point, from where most drivers come in as like billionaires' sons, like Lance Stroll and Nikita Mazepin. So I think I respect Hamilton for that, but I have to agree with Ben. Like, we've already burned our bridges with Hamilton and Alonso now. We did it in the first podcast. We called him boring. Yeah. and as soon as it happened, my dad was like, "That's it. You're not getting a podcast with Lewis." So I was like,
"This will be clipped up and dug out when you lot are big time." I'm trying to get drivers on.
Monty, I'm sure Hamilton's going to be affected about 2 boys sitting in a motorhome talking about it.
Oh yeah. That was the first one. If you didn't watch it, we were in our
motorhome.
Brilliant.
About Hamilton.
Wrapped in coats. The audio going absolutely wrong. It was an absolute awful podcast, really, from that point of view. But we had to get it out.
You've got to start somewhere. We've all started.
You've got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
You've got to start somewhere. But so with the Lewis re-signing thing, I know I'm personally, you're an Alex fanboy. I'm a George fanboy. Ben will tell you. I love George Russell. I just think I don't think he could do anything that would be bad. Like, he's just a perfect person. And
apart from crashing under safety car at Imola.
Don't please. Don't. Should we bring up Alex's misdemeanors?
That's not the point. That's not the point. You said he could do no wrong. I'm just pointing out when he did do wrong.
I still don't think that was a punch we had at Saki. I still think that's a conspiracy.
Do you think that was Ericsson hitting him?
Yeah. It was Ericsson. No, it wasn't Ericsson. Roman, bless him. But no, we want to touch on Hamilton. Let's just get into it. Like, he's obviously re-signed, and the terms of the agreement we don't know yet, but there's an inclusion for this More We Race as One, and they're going to do more with charities and equality, which is obviously a good thing. But I want to know if you secretly did want George to get the seat, because I know I definitely did. I was outward about it, but
I mean, it would have been nice for George. I think George has already proven that he would be very capable in that car. But look, I think Lewis he's writing history at the moment, and people don't appreciate it at the time. Like, none of us do. Like, I don't. Yeah, you guys probably don't. Like, until in years down the line, we look back at like how much Lewis has already done for the sport, both competitively and outside of that as well, and how much positive change he's kind of helped implement. So I'm all for Hamilton being in the sport for as long as he wants to be. I think George's time will come. Like with Sakir, obviously I was gutted for George, but I was more happy for Sergio, because at the time Sergio had no guaranteed seat. He could have. Yeah.
They said on the commentary of that, they said, imagine how good he would look in a Red Bull. They said just imagine him. So when I saw that happen, obviously amidst the old chaos of George Russell, I was quite happy like you.
That's the thing.
Sergio.
There was no I feel like George's time is always going to come. That he's got so much talent. He's already proven it. Like, easy, comfortably. So I think, it's going to depend for me, because people are talking about this 1 year contract and what that means, and that can mean lots of different things. Like, ultimately, I think that Lewis he's got his fingers in a lot of pies, hasn't he? He does his fashion stuff.
It's Tommy Hilfiger stuff. I actually like his range.
It's really nice.
It's good. It's good.
Insane.
It's quality good. Yeah, it's quality.
So good.
I'd love to hate on it,
Filthy
because
garms.
I'd love to hate on it, but it's actually really nice.
It's really, it's really expensive, but really nice. But that's the thing. Like, and he's got Extreme E Team coming up as well, and he's got a lot of passions outside of just racing that car, and obviously he's got a lot of years to carry on doing it, and he's still at the top of his game. So I think that if he does win in 21, I think then he's undisputed. Like, there's no joint 7 world titles. He's 8 world titles. He's clear, and I think he would be tempted. But then there's new regulations as well.
Get out soon.
But he might be, he's top of his game still, and he might be interested in trying it. And also, like, what if he wanted to take on a new challenge?
True.
Get old Lando Norris swap with Lewis Hamilton back to McLaren, maybe.
Oh, that would be. I'd love to see Lando in a Mercedes, and I'd love to see Lewis back in a McLaren. That would be ideal.
Weird. I couldn't even picture that. That'd be so weird.
Like, I've seen. I don't remember who did a video on it. I don't know if it was Aldas actually, but there's a video where somebody said what would have happened if Hamilton had stayed at McLaren, and they had like the number 44 on that orange McLaren car. It just didn't look right. I don't know what was up with it. It just did not look right.
Alternative universe, because McLaren's brand identity has just changed. Like, it's flipped like 180, hasn't it? They've gone from like super corporate and clinical under Whitmarsh, and then now they're like
orange car, look at
orange memes.
Yeah, they're very flamboyant. Like, orange memes. I think that's Zach Brown though. That's the Zach Brown effect that he's brought.
Oh, he's funny, man.
He's just so good, isn't he? He's unbelievable.
And Andreas Seidel is like so sick. I couldn't be more confident in Andreas.
Did you do a team principals tier list?
I did, and I've done a video on Andreas as well.
And where did you rate him?
Top tier.
Yeah, he's up there with Otmar and Toto.
100%. Yeah, those three are the top tier.
Toto, I think Toto's the greatest though, just because in terms of the memes, it's obviously Gunter. F1 Drive to Survive has made Gunter's life. He could now live off that for years to come. But I think if you're talking about being a team principal,
I think Otmar. If I had to put anyone top, I would say Otmar. The fact that he's again, like, I've done a lot of research on Otmar over the last few days, and how he's delivered continuously for that team since 2009, just steadily doing better and better every year. And like, Sergio gets a lot of credit, rightly so, for like banging in all those podiums over the years for Force India, but like, Otmar's been at the top of that tree for a long time, and to deliver. So it's like the whole, is Pep Guardiola a great coach when he's never done it without the resource? You know what I mean? It's a similar kind of thing.
Conversations I've had about Pep on this podcast.
I'm going to quote him now. He called him a fraud.
Yeah.
He called him a fraud.
Yeah, now he's just banged us 4-1. So
Fraudio. Yeah, I was about to say. Is that why you're wearing a light blue jumper today?
Basically, I was just trying to get a hot take on the podcast, and he's come back to bite me.
Well, I mean,
so what happens when you put yourself out there?
Tommo's given us one. Tommo's given us one there. I'm going to title a clip. Tommo F1 thinks Otmar's better than Toto or something. That's hopefully going to bang.
I think he could well be. I feel like if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably opt for Otmar.
Wow, that's really. I think that's really controversial. But then again, you've got a good point. So
I'm going
underrated.
I'm going a bit off piece here. What did you think about the Sakir layout of the track?
I thought it was cool. Listen, I think that variety is the spice of life, boys. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't want all tracks to look the same and feel the same. And it was just something a bit different. Super short lap.
You don't want a Tilke track, do you? Really?
No. But at the end of this is why I'm more than happy for like Monaco to be there. Yes, I know it doesn't deliver the best racing.
I hate Monaco.
I'm more than happy for like Baku to be there, and like all these tracks that are different and unique. Like Singapore doesn't always deliver the best racing, but it's just different. Like, I want to see a Spa as much as I want to see something like a Monaco, because it's a completely different type of weekend. Certain teams excel in certain tracks, and I think that's really kind of important to keep. I don't want to see 20 Monacos. Fucking hell, definitely not. But when you've got now 23 races this year, which is insane, there's room for like a Monaco.
I think we can all agree you don't want Russia there.
I mean, that's just dead. Like,
and I think me and Tommo can agree that we want France, but we don't want Le Castellet. We want Magny-Cours.
Magny-Cours.
I think you said in the last podcast you want France to change its layout every year.
Well, no, that was Tolly. Our other host,
they
Marcus,
could though, couldn't they?
He said
Paul
they've got the track.
I'm pretty sure
they've got the track to do it.
I'm pretty sure it was you.
It wasn't. I'm going to edit in now a clip of Marcus saying it just to prove you wrong. He's just going to pop up out of nowhere. Pause the podcast. No, so we've talked about Hamilton, but everybody's saying that Russell's going to be in by 2022. Now, do you think it's going to be with Bottas or Hamilton? Because obviously if Hamilton retires, they're probably going to stick with Bottas.
I think, if I had to put my money on it, I would say it would be Hamilton-Russell. Which would be sick.
Going into 2022. That would be awesome. That would be Hamilton's proper test.
God.
If Hamilton beat George, I'd happily go down and say, yeah, he's going to be very untouchable in terms of driving.
Even if Hamilton wins his 8th world title, which odds on he's probably going to do. I think that the challenge of racing against George and just prove, because the thing is, there was all this veto nonsense people were talking about. Oh, his veto George Russell can't for his contracts. It's like, I'm sorry, like Hamilton is gone up against some of the best of all time. He was against Alonso in his fucking rookie season. All right, he was against Button after he won a world title. His teammates with Rosberg, raced against your likes of Vettel's, like so many drivers he's raced against. Yeah, and he's never shirked from that, and he's never like, and I think that's part of the, even like Hamilton talks about it himself, like even when they have a bad race Mercedes, he can still kind of enjoy the fact that someone else, and he knows it's good for the sport, and I think that would be sick. That would be sick.
I think he showed that. I think actions speak louder than words, but I think he did show that with Pierre. He felt like
of course,
he had an injustice done to him.
Definitely.
But at the same time, in the interviews afterwards, in the pen afterwards, you saw Hamilton go up to Pierre and really congratulate him. So he obviously has got that good side where he's not a sore loser, as Alex would say. You know, this guy's not such a sore loser. This guy's such a sore loser.
That was a good line, but he done it to him twice. I'm sorry, you can forgive that. If you're punting Jack off like twice in a row, 2 league races in a row,
triple that, mate.
He has done.
Triple that.
He has
exactly.
Done. He has done. It's not a case of hypotheticals. This has happened.
On last race, he decided to say, "I'm going to purposely hit him off on the last lap because I'm that annoyed with him."
There we go.
I slowed right down for him.
You did a Simon Pagenaud on fucking Lando Norris.
Exactly. I mean, I think you're totally right with Lewis. I think he does he does congratulate drivers when they do well. But I think the testament to me for Lewis, how he was so good, was when he came in against Fernando Alonso in the same car, who was the world champion at the time with the Renault, he'd been double world champion. And I think he was on level on points with him, wasn't he, at the end of the season, if I'm right? We
all know that if he hadn't made that mistake at China, he'd have probably won that title.
Yeah, easily. And that is just testament to him, I think, of anything. So
100%.
I'm safe to say Lewis is the GOAT. I think Schumacher. Don't think you can compare the two. Lewis has got more wins. Plus, Lewis didn't have to crash people off, and that's going to annoy Matty, isn't it?
Nibble.
That's going to annoy Matty.
Listen, that's
F1
for me as well. That's a big part of it. Like I don't see that. Look, obviously, all racing drivers have incidents where they're at fault, of course, but I've never seen that maliciousness from Lewis ever. And you can say like Senna and Schumacher were both very guilty of it at times. I think like this whole GOAT debate. I mean, you never like it's an opinion. Everyone's going to have one, like ourselves, and you're never going to know, and it's going to be impossible to say. But in terms of dominance in their era, then Lewis has been the most dominant of any driver in any era.
Yeah,
I feel.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to compare eras in any sport, but in Formula One more so, because I know things change in football. The pitches change, and they've obviously got better, and the standard has got better.
Well, it's like comparing Maradona to Messi. It's like
you can't do it. No, you can't do it at all.
You can't. It's a completely different time. Everyone, like the caliber of players was different. You know, they all used to fucking chain smoke back in the day. Like, if you actually put Maradona and Messi on the same pitch, Messi'd run rings round him because he wasn't smoking all day and he treated his body well.
Yeah.
But also, if Maradona grew up in this era and Messi in that era, it'd be the other way round probably. So
yeah. You're a product of your environment, really, aren't you?
We said that about. I'm sure Tom doesn't give two about cricket, but we said that we were describing like some guy 100 years ago was known as like the best batsman ever, and then we're now saying he can't be in that debate of the best because he didn't do it at a time. He did it at a time when they were just sat down drinking and chain smoking all the time. Whereas now the competition's so much higher, and due to technology, etc.
Yeah.
Well, you see in any sport. I think Callum Ilott for me is the biggest one. You can be really good. You can be really immense. I think Callum's great. You know, I just think he's class. I followed him from his GP3 days all the way through, and he's just the show that you have to be the extreme level or just be rich in F1 is a different game, but you have to be elite to be able to compete at the top level. So it just goes to show that like people like Lewis Hamilton, Ronaldo, I think Virat Kohli in cricket, you probably don't know who that is, Tom, but you know.
I've got a bit of cricket. I live right next to Essex Cricket Ground. So.
You live next to Chelmsford, do you?
Yeah, I'm in Chelmsford, yeah.
Oh, yeah, all right, okay. Yeah.
I can literally see the floodlights if I peek my head round.
Sick, man.
But but that's the thing. Yeah, the thing is with Formula One, like there is such a barrier to entry, and you look at F1 esports at the moment, right? And you look at how close the field is. It's like Q1, and they're like 0.2 between top and bottom. It's mad. That's because that is a very accessible way of doing motorsport. But when you've got like when you're talking about having enough money and circumstance, like just having a natural gift is nowhere near enough to get to the top. Whereas as a footballer, you can come from nothing, get spotted by a scout doing some like mad shit at like 8-9 years old, and
the Rooneys,
exactly. You can get plucked out of that. It doesn't matter your background, and that's what's great about football. Yeah, well, exactly.
It's true though. He's come from like the slums of West
South London, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was.
He grew up in South London.
Just say Gerard Rooney, Raheem Sterling.
I mean, there's not many. I think like Patrick Bamford came from quite a well-off background, but like most footballers are. You know, they've come from pretty working class households because there's not that barrier to entry because anyone can just pick up a fucking football, you know what I mean? But it's not the same with F1. There's so many other factors. So like that's why Lewis, not only is he clearly got this God-given talent, he's come from not a poor household, but compared to F1 drivers, incredibly poor, like most F1 drivers, because he's just come from a normal house, like a pretty kind of standard middle class, like English household in Stevenage. Like for him to have that and have a dad who's prepared to work 3 jobs and take him all around, like to have all of those things come together in someone like Lewis Hamilton is such a unlikely thing. It's amazing. It's mad.
Yeah, it's mad.
And the fact, I think, he's from a black background, he's the first black F1 driver, and he's not only the first black F1 driver, he's the best of all time. So he's paving the way for black.
And it just like that's the thing. It's look. I would say the same about women as well in Formula One. Like the thing is, even if you've got you tick every privilege box in the world. You've got super rich dad. You're white. You live right next to a go-kart track. You've got everything you could possibly need. Even then, your likelihood of actually making Formula One is still tiny.
Second to none.
Tiny, and that's when you tick every privilege box. Imagine if then you're from a poor background, and therefore if you're in this country, if you're disproportionately more likely to be from a BAME background if you're in a poor, or female again. Like there's a lot less. Like most of the kids competing in karting are white boys. At the end of the day. White boys.
Yeah, they are, because their
like
dads
us.
Skinny white boys like
skinny white boys like us. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about skinny, like lockdown. Come on, hit me a bit hard, boys. But so I keep my stomach out of shot.
It's some of us a bit hard. I actually need to get a hat like yours, because look at this hair. It's just everywhere, mate.
Everyone streams on the road. So.
I've got so many hats now.
I know. You need to send me one, please. Because look at this. It's just shocking.
Yeah.
It's just shocking. But I have a lot of criticism of Red Bull as a team for what they've done with Pierre and Alex. But I also think through their youth programme, and obviously Ferrari have now got their driver academy, Mercedes obviously picked up George. But I think a lot of teams are kind of taken from the Lewis Hamilton mould that we're going to provide you with these opportunities now more so than ever. Because back in with Fernando Alonso's time, or even beyond that, you had to be rich to get into F1. It very rarely did somebody come in with sponsors, whereas now it's the done thing, or you're through a driver academy.
I didn't realise, right? So I had JD TRL Limitless. I had him on my podcast.
I'm a big fan.
He's great, and we were talking about his kind of go-karting past, and he's raced with Alex and Lando a bit, and loads of guys. And the amount, it's 6 figures a year when you're top tier karting, and it's you're getting fuck all income from that. That's 6 figures going out and nothing really coming back in, and all that time and going around and motorhome and all that shit. You look at someone like Esteban Ocon, and I have so much respect for Esteban. The fact that he came from a pretty kind of working class background. You know, his dad was a mechanic, and they just ended up they lived in a motorhome and went round France competing in karting races. And they just. You know, he clearly had that ability, but everyone around him, and it was the same with Lewis, everyone around him had these fancy motorhomes and all this shit, and it's just it's so unsustainable.
That's different graft if you're in. That's different.
It's mad. And I feel like there must be a solution, and I think esports is to an extent, but there must be a way of making entry level motorsport more accessible. There must be, because it's. Mate. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've got my podcast going out this weekend, another exclusive with Jarno Otmir, and he used to kart, and he raced F4 as well. And I asked him that, and he's like, he doesn't think there is. And I'm like, well, if he says there isn't, then
then we're all finished, bro.
He knows a lot more than I do.
Yeah. Jarno's somebody who I want to get on as well, because I think one thing I wanted to ask you as well, I actually got written down here, is. When do you think the first Formula One driver will be from esports rather than karting? Because I still think we've got a long way to go. Because I think you learn things in karting that you don't get with esports. Risk, because
if EA
it's different
make
gravy.
the new F1 game, we're all finished.
Microtransactions, baby.
F1 points, just reel it in.
The thing is, right? So obviously, all the youngsters people who are going to be F1 drivers in 10 years' time, they're going to be doing both, aren't they? If you're going to make, because you can, there's clearly the fact that someone Igor Fraga, Jan Mardenborough, James Baldwin, Jarno as well, obviously, that is something unique about motorsport, is that you can 100% replicate the input from home, from anywhere. Yes, you don't get the G-force and the danger, of course, but you can replicate that input, so you can still train those skills. So I think everyone coming up from 10 years time will be doing both.
I mean, it's just positive transfer, isn't it? It's just when you learn something from one situation, you can transfer it easily across the other.
Exactly.
And it's almost very accessible from anywhere, really.
That was what's mad to me, right, about James Baldwin, particularly, because he never used to sim race, right? And he used to do a lot of karting, and then obviously it got too expensive, as it does for most people. And he's like, when he became world fastest gamer, he'd only been sim racing for 3 years. He'd been sim racing for. And
these guys sometimes put 6-7 years into it before they get anywhere.
Mate, longer than like double figures. Some people, and they're like, see where people start, and like to get to that level, and it's like he was. So I do think there's going to be, like you say, I think everyone's going to be doing both. I think you're going to get some people who are doing all of the karting they could possibly do, and then a bit of esports on the side. And some people, as long as they're like getting in a kart, even if it's just like once a month, but in a higher level kart, and then practicing all the time esports, that could well be enough for someone who's talented and got that ability to be plucked by like a driver academy, just mainly based on their esports performances because of the correlation. So I do think that's part of the solution, definitely.
Well, I think it's becoming ever more present we've got the Twitch quartet now, and they are hilarious. I go on Twitch, I watch them all, Lando, Alex, George and Charles, watch them all, and I think they're paving the way, like Ben said.
They're just relatable lads, aren't they? You see them on Twitch and you're just like, oh yeah, that could be me and the boys, you know what I mean? Like
Lando is relatable until I watched your video where you basically said he was from a rich dad, and then I was like, it's a bit different.
Yeah, but again, he still
has relatability. He still has relatability.
I mean, of course, most drivers do. Most drivers have that rich, and that's obviously that's the thing with like someone like Lance Stroll. Like I can't begrudge him for taking the opportunities. Like if I was born with a billionaire father, of course I'm like, fucking get me a go-kart, Dad. Of course I am. Like you can't begrudge Lance, and obviously the fact that Lance, you could say the same about Sergio Perez, right? Because when he first came into F1, and especially around that McLaren time, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of talk of like, when Kevin Magnussen replaced him at McLaren, oh, this is a triumph against paid drivers. I remember when that was being like talked about Sergio Perez, and now you're like, he's not a paid driver, he deserves it, but of course he is. It's just that money bought him the opportunity to get to the level that he is now, and now he's incredible.
I think a lot of people forget that people like Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso were paid drivers. And they always brand paid drivers as, these drivers who aren't actually that good that just pay their way to get into the sport.
I mean, you've got like
Raguna always will be.
Which I understand.
He's brilliant though. So don't chat about Lord Mojave.
Oh, God. That meme is so dead. I tell this to Josh all the time. Every time I say it, I'm like, fuck it, another one. Josh, what have you created?
You need to tell it to Josh. Josh uses it in every video I think I've seen him put out.
I know. He's just wringing the neck of that a little bit more for the content.
No, but I think people do often forget that you do need to get a start in F1. Like Schumacher got his through Mercedes back, and I think he had his through. I don't know how Alonso got his, but he was straight into that Renault, wasn't he? And you do need these opportunities to open doors, but you need to hold the door open to be able to carry on.
Exactly, so, and some people again have got, like Nico Rosberg, for example. Like he had all the resource, but also he did have clear, incredible talent, and so he had both of those things. But some people just have one, or some people just have the other, and some people don't have the money to ever be able to. There's going to be countless people out there. Like, imagine if everyone had the opportunity to do karting and to get into F1 if they had the skill. I reckon 80% of the grid would be different.
Yeah, it would be insane.
The sport is so limited by socio-economic backgrounds. It's a joke, mate. Honestly.
But then again, how do you stop that? Because it's always going to be a thing, really. Because even now with the esports, we talk about that's probably a bit more accessible. You're still paying, I'd say, about $5,000 for a decent setup to be competitive.
Monty, I'm not going to say who, but we've got unfair casual racing. We've got little Xbox controller. We've got someone with a big simulator over there.
Big simulator, yeah.
Oddly, he's getting quicker times than me.
He's moving around like this, and we're just sat there on the controller. So,
well, what I do hope is that, because obviously with lockdown, like particularly motorsport esports has blown up massively, and as time goes on, these things should get cheaper, and hopefully there will be more accessible options. Because you're right, like it's a joke. I mean, even the cheapest, like half decent wheel, you're still spending like 150, 200 quid, which people again, a lot of people don't have that money to spend. And that's because that is still a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, it's still huge. I think that goes unrecognised with esports because I know a lot of people still play on the pad. Because I know you did your podcast with TRL Limitless, and you said that when you were doing it, you were doing.
When
it on
I
the
was
pad.
good, I used to be on the pad, yeah, all the time.
When you were good, we might have to have a league race with you sometime.
Oh, mate!
Oh my days!
That would be that. No,
I'm still hoping Veloce are going to sort me out with like a free sim rig. That's the dream.
That would be class. Oh,
I've got one of the directors on WhatsApp, and every now and then I'm just like, when are we going to do that bit of content where I get a free wheel?
just keep sending him like the link to the Fanatec wheels or whatever.
You want to slide me some peas for a simulator?
I'll take a used one. I don't mind. One of your play seats in the office. I'm
pre-owned.
Yeah, exactly. Just give it a clean. It's fine.
Just a little eBay job. Another thing that I think this is the last thing we're gonna touch on. Then we'll let you go. You can have your dinner. Yeah.
I've already had my dinner, boys.
You've had your dinner.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm gonna ask
it's
you about
9:30. That would be quite a late dinner.
Mate, I haven't
I've got mine in the oven ready for me to go down and have.
Play.
I'm starving right now. My tummy's going.
You're making us starve, basically.
Yeah.
Oh well, we can chat for hours, lads. You can wait.
Yeah, we'll be even skinnier white boys by the end of this.
Nice.
I want to ask about sprint races because that's something that people are talking about a lot more now. How do you think if they did a Formula 2 style sprint race to arrange the grid, how do you think that would work?
Yeah, because they're voting on that, aren't they? Apparently on Thursday.
They're doing that this Thursday.
I would like to. I think we need to see it. I think we need to see it in action to see if it's going to work. Like people call it like, what's the word? Like what's the word people are using about it when it's like it's like a manufactured piece of entertainment. It's not like
artificial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, artificial. It's because the thing is with motorsport as well that's quite kind of unique is that everyone qualifies and then the fastest person starts further up the grid, which it's like a 100-meter race with like Usain Bolt starting 20 meters, only having to do 80 meters because he's the quickest. You're always going to kind of restrict the competitiveness, and I think the reverse grid sprint races work really well in F2. I understand from like a purist point of view why people are a bit against it, but I think it would be great to see. I think it would be.
I have to agree. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be really cool to see like the top 10 just flipped. You don't get any points if you're outside the top 10, but if you're like you get 1 point, 10th, you start on pole. Could be interesting, and obviously again when you've got faster cars, you've got the Mercedes starting in P10 and 9, and they're more likely to have to cut through and therefore could have incidents because you've got faster cars behind slower cars, which could give opportunities to other people. I think it all kind of levels out in the end.
You've also got a safety thing though, haven't you? Because obviously, especially with Sakir as well, they were talking about how it's almost dangerous, borderline dangerous, the track, and how the faster cars may cause, especially in the qualifying, how the faster cars or the slower cars will collide with the faster cars, being that increased chance. So you do have a bit of a problem there with the reversed order. But I see how it's very entertaining, especially for like a casual viewer. It would be much more exciting, especially if it's in F2, more an underground format.
I don't know, because they can make it work with like 24-hour races where they've got different classes on track at the same time and everyone's overtaking. Personally, I don't buy that. I don't think that's like the difference in speed isn't massive. Most of the time it's differences around the corners. It's like aerodynamic grip more than it is like Williams has got a fucking Mercedes engine still miles behind. You know what I mean? So I think I would love to see it. I understand why particularly obviously Mercedes don't want it because they're at the top and they want their clean, which I get their point of view, but then they, this is the difficulty of Formula One is that they include the teams in the decision making, but you don't get that with like football. It's just like rightly or wrongly, like they make the decision and then it is what it is. You've got no vested interest there, so.
I think it would complement the new regulations coming in, though. I think this season, I would say keep it the same. But I think with the new regulations, it's a chance to almost go from scratch. But I get why the purists are against it, because F1, very traditional based, isn't it? You've got like Ferrari, been in the sport for years, and it's always been that way. So I can get from a traditional standpoint why they wouldn't want it, but the racing part of me just thinks it would be so good to see.
Well, I think 21 is like a great opportunity again, like you say, before new regulations to like try this thing out. I mean, ideally with the new regulations, we shouldn't need something like that because it should all just be that loads of different drivers get the opportunity to get a pole position because everything's so much closer. Now, obviously, look, yeah, of course, the cream will always rise to the top. The same F2 teams, even though it's spec series, typically do well. Your Premers, your ARTs, all that. But at the same time, like, I think with the new regulations, if they do what they're meant to do, which is tighten up the field, then we may never see domination like we have done. If it's done properly, we shouldn't be seeing domination like we have done in the Lewis and the Schumacher years. And I think reverse grids, I don't know, it would be interesting to see. I definitely want to see them in 21, 100%. Because, again, it's the same rules for everyone. We can try it and then going into the new regulations, maybe see if it's necessary. Because I do think, going into the new regs, there are going to be some teams and some teams are going to take to those new regs really well. Some teams not. So there will be a big gap, I think, at the start. But then I think give it a few years and it should tighten up. And I don't think we'd need reverse grid, but it would be interesting.
Yeah, I agree, but I'd love to see reverse grid in more equal cars. But then you're almost defeating the point of having a reverse grid. I kind of get where you're coming from there, to be honest. But the last question I want to ask you, I don't know if Ben's got any more he wants to go through, but I'm taking that as a no. But I just want to ask you.
He's finished done with me.
Just does this.
I'm just thinking about the curry that I'm going to have. To be honest,
that's all.
I rate that. What kind of curry is it?
I don't know. To be honest, my dad bought it me, and it's in the fridge.
Just a curry.
Yeah, it's just a surprise.
Nice.
Couple of masala, I don't know.
Tikka surprise.
If it's a tikka masala, I'm going to be disappointed. Then I really am. My last question is, it's actually we got asked this from an Instagram question. It's, are you thinking about your YouTube and how you can expand that, or if the opportunity came along? I know you've obviously had this with Veloce now, and you've done a bit of freelance work with WTF1 as you mentioned, but with Formula One growing socially, I think they're one of the sports that are growing the most on social media. They've got Will Buxton and Lawrence Bretto on the YouTube channel. If the opportunity came to work for them exclusively, would you drop your YouTube for Formula One?
No way. Never.
That's the answer. That's the answer I wanted. That's the answer I wanted.
You're nowhere you're going to even in the back of your mind, you're thinking, yeah, that sounds ideal. There's no way you're saying it on a little boy podcast like that.
I swear on Minton's life. Never. He's right here.
Oh, we're holding you
my
to that.
Beautiful child. He's right, no, never. Now, listen, I think that what this last kind of year has taught me is that, like, I really want to be. I've always wanted. When people said, like, what's your goal, or like, what job do you want? Like, my thing's always been, I want to. Oh, my battery's low. 1 sec. My thing's always been that I want to be financially independent, and whether it was for a YouTube, whether it was start my own business, like in something else or whatever, that was always kind of like the end goal for me. And I think that, like, I'm onto something I really enjoy doing, and there's definitely, like, clearly like an opportunity for me to build this bigger and bigger. I look at people like True Geordie, Spencer FC. Yeah. I look at what they're doing, and they've remained, like, independent. Particularly, like, Brian's not getting a proper football deal his way anytime soon, is he? Because he's far too opinionated. He's far too puts himself out there.
He's had some controversies as well.
Yeah, the way he presents his content, it's not middle of the road.
No. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm not like I've had like a couple of like potential things that could have happened, but I'm just like, the more and the thing is with Veloce, it's kind of a good, because they wanted me for me to do my own style. Like, I'm not putting on a persona. I'm not putting on a presenter voice.
You're not a puppet, no.
Yeah, and like people like I completely understand. Like, for example, like I've chatted loads because where I used to work with like WCF1 and work with Matt a lot, and Matt's a great guy. Like I've met him loads of times. I'd like watch the race at his house, and then we'd film IBR straight after with like the green screen, and then I'd drive home and edit it and that. And he's obviously like he's been able to take that what he did, which was quite out there, like his ex-MATG stuff, but like build opportunities through WTF1 for working in F1, and I completely like respect that, and like I think he's great at what he does, but that's not like what I'm interested in at all. Like I want to be in control of what I'm putting out there, and I want to give this kind of perspective, because I think there's enough people out there doing like they can find enough people to do that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I'd rather just do my own shit and be in control of my own stuff and build this, because this could be this can be so much bigger. Like what I'm doing.
YouTube has endless possibilities as well.
Oh mate,
you know,
100%.
if you went into the Formula One at like the company itself, and you did what Will and Lawrence are doing, and they are doing a great job. I think they're amazing, but you're almost losing your identity. You've worked so hard to get to the point you're at now, where you're making money off it, and you're loving the content you're putting out. I think it would be a shame to just waste that. And also, being financially independent is one thing. I think owning your own service or your own product is something more than that.
100%.
And I think that's what you should do.
And that's always been like a personal ambition of mine. And there's most of my mates don't necessarily share that ambition, and they're quite happy to work for someone and work their way up, or just stay at a job and be happy. Because look, everyone's idea of happiness is very different. Like there's some people who, you know, I know they will never leave Romford, where I grew up, and they have kids early on, build a family, you know, their job is nothing kind of like, it's just a pretty standard job, but they love it, and they're super happy, and that's for them, and I've got my own, and my happiness comes from like doing it alone and like doing my own stuff. And I've been freelancing for like a long time now, and now this is the opportunity I've kind of been waiting for, to actually fully be financially independent. And I'm not gonna, like, for the sake of what would just be another kind of a job where I'm not able to just do what I want and be myself and create what I want. So yeah, no, I'm not leaving YouTube anytime soon, don't you worry.
There you go. Tommo's Guide to Financial Freedom. It's like the Jordan Belfort.
That's it, mate.
That's it. A new title. The Jordan Belfort of F1.
The
Jordan
Belfort of F1? Question mark.
And also, I think you're further down the road, so you know that. Whereas me and Ben, we're still students, so we're still doing our A levels. And we're still we're doing this basically as an outlet. We love doing it, and we're not doing it for money or anything. We're doing it to have diverse conversations, explore different sports. But hopefully in the future, if it ends up getting big, then that will obviously...
And boys, listen, like, I always say this to people like who I speak to who are kind of like your age, and I mean, imagine, like, I'm 28. Like, if I'd have started this like 10 years ago, like, imagine how big it could, like, if I started doing what I'm doing now when I was your age, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there's such an opportunity. Like, if anyone, like, if you guys or anyone listening, like, you want to get a job in the industry that you, like, say for example, you wanted to get like to work in F1, just fucking like make shit and just learn, and there's so much you can teach yourself online, and you can build those skills. Like, part of the reason I started doing F1 in the first, not F1, started doing YouTube in the first place when I started doing football stuff, is because I wanted to improve. Like, I was really bad at like talking in front of like people, and I was very nervous, and I wasn't very confident, and that was part of what I wanted to improve. But also it was an outlet, like a creative outlet, and that. And I just think, like, yeah, there's 100% going to be so many opportunities. If you boys, like, and that's the thing, if you got to keep this up though, you got to like push through all the times when like you don't see, like, the views aren't what you want, or you don't see any growth. You've just got to keep on it and just keep learning and make every single episode better than the last one. And you will eventually, you'll look back in, like, give it like a year, and you'll look back at the stuff you did a year ago and think that's fucking shit. But that's good.
Yeah.
Because that shows progression, you know?
I totally, we've had that, I think I've had that already, because I do all the thumbnails, like Ben helps with the YouTube, he understands YouTube, the game, a bit more. I don't know why, he's just good at that.
Friendly, mate.
He's great at that, yeah. But one thing I look back at now, and I've already looked back at like the first podcast we did, and I look at the thumbnail and I'm like, that's so bad compared to like the one I've just put out. And like that's within a 1 month period.
The mic's over
The stand.
my face,
The
bro.
mic stands over his face.
Sorry, if you get the chance after this, have a look at the thumbnail of our first
just the
podcast.
thumbnail.
You've got this mic rig, over my face.
The whole
Right here,
time.
bro.
Hang on, I'm getting my phone up. Right, hang on. One sec, I've got to look at this.
Got the Sports Talk podcast #1, and you've just got the
Number
mic
one.
rig with a pop filter over my face.
The
It's
pop
brilliant.
filter, those were the days. Jesus Christ. Hang on, oldest. Oh
I've ditched
my.
mine now.
Yeah. I see that. The cable's just like. Ooh.
It's brilliant though, because Ben's not as good looking as I am. So.
See, that's a prime example. Like the connector doesn't need to be up; it could be below.
But it can be here.
then it's
I
like-
don't know why I had the
I
pop
know,
filter in the first
I
place.
know.
We didn't even use the mic.
We've been watching too much Joe Rogan. That's the thing. We've
The
been
mic
watching
didn't
too
even
much Joe
work for the
Rogan.
first one, and we knew that going in, but it's still over my face in the thumbnail.
But that's the thing, if you hadn't have done that, you'd have never have learnt that lesson. You know what I mean?
No.
And now
Whereas
you're
now-
like,
Yeah.
Mate.
you're moving
Well, we
things forward. And but that's what you say, like Ben, like knowing YouTube and knowing the YouTube game, like that is gonna be a job, a genuine career opportunity if you want it in the future, because all businesses are going to start to move like more so, and already have done, but more so to YouTube. They're going to want people who understand the platform and how it works. And if you can prove that, then you're sorted. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he knows much more than I do. So if you
But
put this in the
it works,
description
though, because
and it bangs,
I'm absolutely pants with like art and like video creation and all that.
he's awful.
But then I help Monty out with all the sort of like
his-
the flow of the
his
podcast and stuff like
His
that.
career, we were coming up with a logo before we did a podcast. We were coming up with a logo, and I was like, "Does this work, Ben?" He was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "You don't care, do you?" He's like, "I'm not creative. I don't know what to do."
I'm rubbish.
At least you're honest, man.
I'm so my artistic skills are bottom of the pile, mate.
I think we'll wrap this up. So thank you very
That's
much,
been
Tommo, for
fantastic,
coming
Tommo.
on. You've been a brilliant guest.
Boys, I've enjoyed it. It's been really good.
Oh, thank you so
we
much.
appreciate
And
it so much, mate. It's been absolutely class.
it's been amazing. Best 15 quid we've ever spent.
What, we've got an hour 40. So what's the
Back for your book there.
what's the per hour on that, right? I don't know. Do the maths.
£15 per hour is more than I'm being burned. No, it's not. Yeah. Anyway, right. Thank you very much for coming on the Sports Talk podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.